All right, today I want to talk about audio. Can we get the share screen going? So I mentioned a while back with cameras that we had to ensure that if we had multiple cameras in the scene, that we would turn off the audio listener in all but one of the cameras. And the one that we leave on is usually the one where we hear the sound. This is because sound in Unity is a three-dimensional concept. Where does sound come from in Unity? It comes from audio sources. And so very simply in this little scene here, I have a cube. I have my first person character that has this audio listener. So the sound I'll be picking up is on my character. And I have this cube and I've added an audio source to it. And I've dropped one of my sounds here, the boom sound, into the audio clip slot. Now, there are a number of settings. And first, we should look at the sound. The sound itself has a number of different import settings. We can force it to mono, so it's a stereo sound. There are two channels here, but I could force it to mono. Normalizing it kind of flattens the sound so that really loud parts are not as loud and really soft parts are not as soft. And then we have some settings here for load and background, ambient and others. Um, the other trade-off is uh, compression, how we load the um, sound. And our choices are that we decompress it on load. The sound is usually compressed, and we can decompress it when we load it. Um, this avoids having to decompress it when we play the sound, but it takes up a lot more memory, of course. We also have a choice of keeping it compressed in memory. This then produces a slight overhead when we have to play it because it has to be decompressed while playing. And we can also stream it directly from the disk. So uh, this doesn't take up any memory. Um, and this is good for like background music that is playing constantly rather than loading it. We just stream it directly from the disk. And when we're done setting things up, we can then apply it and the sound is imported. This is converted into some specific format for Unity. So looking at the audio source, we have the clip. There's an output slot for sending it to mixers. The mixer is a TMO, too many option tool, comparable to particle effects in terms of the number of things you can do with sound. I won't discuss it here. Uh, Play on awake, this is what it says when you play this sound. When you start the game, the sound will immediately appear. Looping makes the sounds repeat. We can also bypass various effects, specifically things like reverb zones that I'll show you later. And there's settings for the volume and the pitch, how loud the sound is going to be, and whether you want to shift the frequency of the sound. You can take a sound and make it higher frequency or lower frequency by adjusting its pitch. Stereo pan has to do with how much separation there is in the sound in the left and right. You wouldn't notice this unless you were wearing headphones. And a really interesting setting is the spatial blend. And let me show you that, the spatial blend. With, with the spatial blend set all the way to 2D, and there's something to look at here, which is how the sound attenuates with distance. I have a minimum distance and a maximum distance. The sound inside the minimum distance is uniform. So from 0 out to 5 meters, it's going to be at that level. And as you go further away, it's going to decline logarithmically. We also have a linear setting, linear roll-off, where the sound in that minimum to max distance decreases linearly. With linear roll-off outside this 50 meters, there'll be no sound. Inside the 50 meters, it's linear. Whereas the logarithmic roll-off actually never goes to 0. There's always a little bit of sound out there. And this you get with the spatial blend. With this on 2D, the sound is uniform in the world. It sounds the same everywhere. That's a 2D sound. Whereas a 3D sound, this distance applies. And of course, in between, it behaves kind of sort of like uniform and sort of like distance. So with this logarithmic blend die-off, if I start this off, hear the boom sound. If I move closer, louder. If I move further away, the sound increases. It never completely goes away. It's always there kind of in the background. And again, I mentioned with linear roll-off, there is a cutoff after which you don't hear any sound at all. If we have 3D sound, we have access to these 3D settings, one of which is the Doppler level. And you know, you've heard cars go by, they go, well, that's the Doppler effect. As the sound waves are piled up by something moving towards you and stretched out by something moving away. And we have settings for the Doppler level. And I think you can set this up to 5, and then you get the most Doppler level as possible. How much spread is the stereo pan, and then the roll. So that's our audio source. Let me show you another scene here then. I'll save this scene and look at test sounds here. And in this one, I have a couple of sounds, boom, gulls, and jungle. And just for visualization, I've put a circle around the sound that shows its range. I'm using linear fall off here. So the sounds outside that circle, we won't be able to hear the boom. Inside it, we will. And there is a region here where all of the sounds kind of overlap, boom, gulls, and jungle. The other thing I've included in here is a reverb zone. And reverb zones are things that have distortion, and you'll hear this in a second. The distortion, this is kind of the generic one, but there are a whole bunch of different reverb zone presets, as well as completely customizable, where you can adjust the different sets for how the high frequency, the room, the low frequency room, decay time, that's like echoes, reflections, reflection delay, that would be how big the room is that you're in, and other features that allow you to kind of distort the sound. So let me start off here, and my character initially is outside any of the regions. So if I step inside the green circle, I'm going to start hearing the boom sound. As I go closer to it, it gets louder. And if I kind of rush by it, hear the Doppler effect. So over here is the jungle sound. They're all 3D sounds. I was thinking that the jungle sound could maybe be a 2D sound with the gulls. And here's this overlapping region where I can hear all three of them. Now I mentioned the reverb zone. So first of all, you can hear the footsteps are quite different inside the reverb zone. And the booms are echoey, the dog sounds are more distorted. There's a lot we can do with audio. Just for fun here, I set up a scene that has all of the different reverb zones so that you can kind of walk around inside them. Now I'm outside. And here I've made the jungle sound a 2D sound, so it's uniform throughout the world. But there are different reverb zones, the auditorium, the room, the stone corridor, the over the top. I'm not sure any you heard anything of what I said in there, but I'm sure you'll enjoy playing with that yourself. So that's kind of a brief introduction to audio. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'll come back in just a minute with in the next lecture with our first instance of interactive scripting. I'll stop recording. See you in class. Bye.